Hello and welcome to Dishelved with Adam White. This week I'm going to be talking about some more Dungeons and Dragons books. The two I'm talking about this week are The Savage Caves and The Living Dead. They were supposedly written by T.H. Lane, but that was actually a pseudonym for 10 different authors that wrote 10 books with the third edition iconic characters. So these were back in early 2002 through 2003. They published 10 books. And this is the first one, The Savage Caves. And I read it and the second one, The Living Dead. And The Savage Caves was written by Philip Athens. And The Living Dead was written by Corey Hearn. Some information off the internet to fill in the blanks here. Anyway, they wrote these books about the iconic characters from the third edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and they were interesting. I'd been wanting to read them for a long time, but they weren't available. Well, I guess sometime in the last couple of years, I hadn't checked, but they all became available on Kindle, so you can get them now because they'd been long out of print for like 20 years. So I'd wanted to read them, so I read the first two. They're not very long books, but the first one, The Savage Caves, uh, it reads pretty much like a novelization of a D&D encounter that somebody might have played and then turned into a story, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But it really felt like you were encountering things players would encounter as part of an adventure. Now, the strength of the book was its characters. It had Josen, who was I think a cleric, and Regdar, who was a fighter, Null, who was a wizard, and Lida, who was a halfling rogue, who was really funny. I really enjoyed her character. It's funny how they find her in the beginning of the story and what's happening to her. So I won't say what it is because it's part of the fun of the book. But so the strength of it was its characters. I found that the parts with Regdar and Null, they kind of got split up in over the course of the story, and I thought that their parts were more engaging than the ones with Josen and Lida. Uh, I Although I enjoyed Lida as a character more than any of the others, uh, but they seem to get the short shrift in terms of the book. But they all played a part in it, and they were all fun characters, and you got to see them grow as characters as they went through the adventure they were on. They're all down in these caves where there's goblins and spiders, and something has happened to the goblins that is affecting the people in the town above. They have a herd of sheep, and it's like their entire livelihood in this really, really small village. And the spiders are killing their sheep, and if they do, they won't have any way to survive, which I don't know how that all hinges on one herd of sheep, but that was the condition of the story at the beginning, um, and why these adventurers get involved in it. Now, like I said, it played out kind of like an adventure that you'd play in D&D, like a starting module, and that's okay because it worked. It was a fun story. The characters were a lot of fun, and it all turned out the way you'd figure it'd turn out. But it was a lot of fun. Now, the second book, The Living Dead, had a completely different cast of characters. Now that I was not ready for. Um, I thought they were all going to follow the same characters. Now I don't know if they get back to these characters in a later book. I hope so, because I'm going to read more after these two. But the second one, The Living Dead, read more like a novel than it did a module for D&D. Uh, the characters, the main character was Miali, who was a wizard, an elf wizard, and a half-elf bard named Devis. Those were the two main characters, and I don't want to say anything about any of the other characters because it's kind of surprising who they turn out to be as the story goes on. But they have kind of a one night stand and get involved in this big plot with a evil wight who is trying to raise all the dead soldiers and take over the world, basically. And it was just, it was an okay novel. Um, the characters were interesting. About 60% of the way through, you get an info dump where you just get a bunch of knowledge from a character who knows it, and you kind of, it fills in the blanks of why the characters are doing what they're doing. But it was a good info dump. It was a lot of fun. It was an interesting story, and it kind of came out of nowhere, but once the story was told, then they saw the reasoning for what they were doing, and they followed through with their trying to stop this wight from that's Wight, White, not my name, uh, an undead creature that was using like zombies to destroy an elven village and killed a halfling settlement, and it just, he was up to no good. His name was Kavadrid, and so their whole mission was to stop him and to try to save Miali's old teacher, who was an old elf, from Kavadrid. And so it was a fun story. I didn't like it as well as the first book, even though I had my issues with the first book. It seemed like maybe, like I said, they came out in the span of like a year and a half, over the course of 2 years there. And so, I mean, they may have rushed them a little bit. The next one is written by Bruce Cordell, who I know to be a good writer. So I've already got that one, and I'm definitely going to read it too. But I thought I'd just start with these first two. I'll get to the others some other day. But I am interested in reading more. I hope they get back to the characters from the first story, uh, because I just found them more interesting than the characters from the second story. What would be even better is if they joined the groups and had all of them go together on adventures, because then they'd have kind of a full party of adventurers. But they were fun books, short books, and I really did enjoy them. Are they my favorite books of all time? No, I didn't find them as good as the Dragonlance novel from last week. I thought it was a much longer book, so they, fleshed out the characters more, and um, any kind of stuff that was like you'd find in the actual game, they kind of naturally worked into the setting of the story. And I thought the Dragonlance was better than these books, and they were written originally back in 1984. But now there goes that. But anyway, I enjoyed them. If you like Dungeons and Dragons and want to learn more about the iconic characters from the third edition, and we're on the fifth edition and getting ready to come out with a new version of the fifth edition, which they swear is still fifth edition, so we'll see. But um, the books were a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the other ones. Like I said, the next ones were by Bruce Cordell, and I really like him as a writer. And he was a game designer too, and still is, as far as I know. And so I'm looking forward to reading that one, and I'm hoping they bring back some of the characters from the first book. Anyway, fun books. The Savage Caves and Living Dead by T.H. Lane. Like I said, they're all written by different authors, but T.H. Lane, Lain, is the name of the pseudonym that they all used. The reasoning for which was they wanted them placed on the shelves together. So they made the one pseudonym for all of them to be written under so that the books would be shelved together in bookstores back when there were like physical bookstores you could go into and look for books. You pretty much just do it online now. And if you want these books, you'll pretty much have to do them on Kindle unless you find secondhand old editions, because I don't know that they were ever reprinted from their first editions. I don't think they were. But you can get them all on Kindle now, all 10 of them. And like I said, they gave them a pseudonym so they'd be on the shelf. Little did they know that in bookstores, which I've worked in a couple in the past, Dungeons and Dragons were all shelved together anyway. So the trick was kind of on them, but they always shelve it at the end of science fiction and fantasy. So they would have ended up being shelved together most likely anyway. But um, anyway, fun books, short little reads. You'll have a good time with them, especially if you enjoy Dungeons and Dragons. And even if you don't, it gives you a nice introduction into it and how you might see the story play out in a game, actually. So it's a good introduction that way too. So anyway, that's all I'll say this week. I've gone on longer than I thought I would. And I want to say thank you for hanging out with me this week, and I will see you again next week.